Monday, September 5th, 2022, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today we're going to look at whether June 17th, 2022 was President Putin's Nixon moment. And what do I mean by that? Well, the Nixon moment, of course, for those of us who follow monetary history, who look at money, gold and silver, was the day when President Nixon basically ripped apart the Bretton Woods agreement. That's when President Nixon suspended temporarily the convertibility of the US dollar for gold at a fixed rate of $35 per troy ounce. And recently, I've noticed that a lot of people on social media have been talking about that speech on June 17th by President Putin at the SPIEF conference. So that's what I want to cover today. Before I do, I'd like to say that many of you, of course, over the years have asked me where to buy gold and silver. And I tell most people to do their homework, to get the best deal, to shop around. But I also have two affiliates. One of them is Gold Investments in the city of London. They've been family owned since 1981. And I have a promo code with them. It's Monaco 64. They provide you with a very good service, personal service, or you can do it online. They're two brothers, Oliver and Simon Temple. They'll be there to help you, and they'll match really any price out there. If you tell them I can get a better price here, they'll match that price. The other affiliate I have is a little different. It's more of a technology play as well, if you want to call it that. It's called GlintPay. They hold your gold in an allocated account in a vault in Switzerland, a Brinks vault at Zurich Airport. They provide you as well with a MasterCard if you want to spend some of your gold. And you open an account there through their app, the GlintPay app. My referral code there is MarioGlint79. So with that, let's get back to Putin's Nixon moment. Yeah, and I think it's that significant. I made a video back on June 23rd, which was about a week after Putin made that, it was called the plenary speech at the SPIEF conference in St Petersburg, Russia. What's SPIEF? Well, it's the St Petersburg International Economic Forum, and I think this one was the 25th SPIEF conference. And you have people from all over the world, even from the West. It's a little bit, if you want to compare it to the Davos World Economic Forum. And believe me, I'm not trying to compare both. I would say I'd rather go to the SPIEF conference than Davos. Yes, he made a long speech, and I spoke about it in my video from June 23rd. I entitled it Putin Leading BRICS Nations into a Gold Standard. And one of the interesting things he said in that speech was that the West, and I think by that he means the Federal Reserve, the ECB, the Bank of England. He said that they've been printing money out of thin air for too long, that their macro, the G7 or the West's macroeconomic policy is what has been creating the cost of living crisis, all the rising prices. And I think he's right about that. Am I a Putin supporter? No, I'm just looking at what he says. I don't support anyone politically, but I think he's right about that. And I think that's why Russia and China have been buying so much gold over the last decade, plus even, I would say. But he also noted that because of COVID, the United States ran a huge current account deficit. He mentioned that, and he also mentioned that the U.S. used to be self-sufficient in agriculture, in foodstuffs, and that it was now importing it, was a net importer. And he actually pointed out how all this money printing has hurt the global south, because the wealthier countries in Europe and North America, they've been using all this printed money to buy real things. And he mentioned that, and he said the world is going to have to move. And this was the Nixon moment, I think. The world was going to have to move into economies that were based on real values, on hard assets, on things like gold and commodities, instead of a world based on unbacked debt. He used that term, or fiat currency. And mythical values. He called it mythical values. So I think that's reversing what Nixon did on August 15th, 1971, where Nixon detached the world monetary system from real values, from hard assets, by stripping the dollar from that gold anchor. And I think when Nixon made that announcement on that Sunday, when he interrupted Bonanza to make that announcement, most people didn't realize how important it was. And I think when people look back at June 17th, 2022, and Putin's speech at the SPIEF conference, they're going to say the same thing about this new world monetary system. You might want to call it the new BRICS currency system. But I think a lot of countries that are not even BRICS, I think a lot of countries that are even in Europe that are not happy with what's going on, eventually they will join this system. It will be a system, not really a system, a Russian system or a Chinese system or a BRICS system. It will be an honest system of honest weights and measures for money, not one, of course, based on nothing really, based mostly on debt, national debt that is created out of thin air, which has taken us to over 100% national debt to GDP in many of the Western countries. Is it any wonder that Russia has very little debt to GDP, public debt to GDP? I think it's under 20%. And it's interesting because I realized that speech was very significant, what he said there about the current dollar system and their new system. And it's been a couple of months ago, and I'm seeing it all pop up on the internet, on social media. So I think people are waking up to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my video from June 23rd up in the cards and also in the description so you can look at it. I've also got a link to his speech at the SPIEF conference. It is in Russia, but it has it's translated. You can read it in English, but I think it's interesting to listen to him as well. So that's what's going on. And I think if we look at what's happening in Europe now and also in Japan, we're starting to see the major currencies already go south, especially not just against the dollar, but against real things. And gold as well, believe it or not. Most people think gold hasn't done well this year. Well, maybe not for Americans who think in US dollars. And I have to say, though, it will happen to the US dollar as well. The reason the dollar is holding on is that it's still a derivative of that old Bretton Woods system. It's still at the center of the current Western currency system. So when the system implodes, the currency that is at the heart of that system, i.e. the US dollar, that will go as well. What we're seeing now is the peripheral currencies go. And just to give you an example, the British pound, that's down over 10% versus gold year to date. We're near all-time highs, as you can see by this chart. Same thing goes for the euro. Euro is down 7.5% versus gold. So actually the euro is outperforming the British pound a bit in terms of real money. And you can see that the chart looks very similar, and we're almost ready to break out. And the yen as well is even worse. The yen is down over 14% year to date. And you can see that gold has been a very good store of value for people who need to use those currencies, especially since the '08 crisis. The only reason the dollar has held up so much is because it's still the best of a bad bunch. But as I've been saying since 2006, even before I started this channel, when I was still working in the city, I was telling people and writing about the fact that all fiat currencies are going to eventually sink versus real things, versus hard assets, versus gold, silver, commodities. And that they sink at different rates, that they sink at different times. And for the dollar really to be devalued, it needs to sink against real things like gold and silver and commodities. So that's the way I see things. I think we are in unprecedented times. Yes, that speech on June 17th is going to be looked at in 20, 30 years, just like Nixon's announcement on August 15th has been looked at for over 50 years. And I think that will mark the beginning of a new era. And I think commodities are going to do relatively well on a relative basis. They're going to become a lot more important, and that's why I've been telling my viewers for over 2 years, not advising them, but telling what I'm doing, that I'm focusing on gold, silver, and commodities, because that's the way to go, I think, the next 10 years at least. So with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. Yeah, the US is shut for Labor Day, but the markets are still trading. The futures, and Europe is open. It's 20 past 8 a.m. London time. We've got spot gold trading at 17.09. It's down about $4. High's been 17.16, and the low has been 17.0750. Silver is actually up on the day. It's up 5 cents at 18.09. High's been 18.15, the low 17.93. To the stock market, the Dow future is up 115 points, 1/3%. NASDAQ 100 future is unchanged. S&P future is up 10 points, or 1/4%. FTSE 100 index is down 0.8%. Eurostoxx 50 is down 2.2%. To the currencies, sterling is testing the 2020 low here. We actually traded down to 114.43. It's holding right now, but it's still down 1/3% at 114.66. The euro has traded as low as 98.77. Right now we're 99.03, still down 0.5%. And the dollar continues to rise versus the yen. It's at 140.50, up 0.2. Dollar is up 0.2 versus the Swiss franc at 98.27. And the dollar is up 0.4 versus the yuan at 694.50. Check the ruble. Dollar is up about 1.6%, trading around 61. So dollar's ticked up a little bit against the ruble, but still stuck around the 60 level. To the other currencies, we got the Aussie dollar down about 0.5% at 67.80. The dollar is up 1/4% versus the Canadian dollar, 131.56. And the Kiwi dollar is down 0.4 at 60.87. To the general commodities, WTI crude is up 2%, 88.50. Brent is up 2.2%, 94.80. High-grade copper is up 0.75% at 3.43, and U.S. nat gas is up 1% at 8.86. And we just quickly look at the European nat gas, the Dutch nat gas futures, the TTF. Well, that's up 22%, not surprising, with the announcement on Friday by Russia. And we're still below the highs we saw recently, above 300. But we are around 261. I would expect this future to test the 300 level maybe this week. We're going to finish off and we're going to look at the UK government bond market, the gilt yield. Treasury is not trading today because it's a public holiday in the US. So we've got the 10-year yield in the UK approaching 3%. So I told you that the break of that 270 was very significant. And since then, we've seen a rapid move higher. We're up 6.5 basis points. Yeah, just below 3%. Not surprising. I think we're going to get a new government in the UK, new prime minister. It looks like it's going to be Liz Truss. And she's going to dish out more and more government largesse in order to stop people from rioting this winter, I would say. The 2-year gilt yield is almost at 320. It's up 7 basis points. That tells me the Bank of England will have to raise rates on the 15th of September by at least 50 basis points, I would say. So there you go. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide and think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And with that, I wish you all a great rest of the week. Take care. Bye.